So hello Bratislava, hello online audience. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Werner, and basically, to get started first, now this talk is going to be 45 minutes. I only have half an hour, so we'll really have to rush through it. So buckle up, fasten your seatbelts. We'll go through the first part of the story, and then we'll take more time talking about the lessons learned. So my talk is called Lessons Learned in Mobile Crowd Testing. My name is Werner, so a little bit about myself. I'm Principal Quality Engineer at Cazoo. You can see me there, different t-shirt, different pants, but that's me. At Cazoo, what we do is, currently we're revolutionizing the way online car sales are done, and also how car subscriptions are done. So maybe you've seen the UK advert already on YouTube with a guy ordering a car on the couch, then sinking into the couch saying, Cazoo, yeah! And then the car already arrives. So check it out, it's really funny. So, a little bit about myself. I've got 15 years of experience in testing. I'm 18 years in IT in total. I'm married, I have 3 sons and 1 dog. I like everything connected to mountains as well, so climbing, mountain biking, hiking, skiing, you name it. And I wanted to share my weirdest testing experience, that's basically testing in Japanese. So when you see a dialogue like this, it's really hard to do the right thing, because it's very important to either save your stuff or discard everything you've been doing, and that's quite tough. So this reminds me of my time in Japan. That's actually where my passion for mobile testing started, because that's around 20 years ago, and the Japanese were the pioneers of really cool mobile phones. So they were called keynoting. They were really small. 20 years ago, they already had color screens and cameras embedded, and they actually had this curved mirror, so you could do selfies together with your friends. So after that, when I get back to Europe, I was a bit set back, because I'm going to show you my first mobile phone that I got over here in Europe. Are you ready? Boom! That's it. It's an archaic German C25 brick. So you really have to wear safety shoes in case you drop it on your foot, otherwise you seriously injure yourself. So, that said, crowd testing. There's a lot of misconceptions about that and misunderstandings. So we're not talking about crowd testing. It's nothing German about it. It's not about sauerkraut. It's not crowd testing. No, definitely not. It's also not cloud testing. I mean, testing systems out there in the cloud, Azure or AWS. Yeah, it could be, but that's not what we're talking about today. It's also not crowd testing like this. What you can see here is Oktoberfest. That was cancelled this year, so I'm glad to be here at SANAE BEER.EX. We will make up for that later tonight. No, actually, what crowd testing is meant to be, it's more pictured in this pic here. So basically, you have a cheering crowd of testers, of people testing your application, and they're really cheering, they really enjoy what they're doing, and you have somebody like a DJ coordinating everything. So keeping them in shape, making sure everyone is motivated and happy, and basically a whole team creating great results in testing. So let's get going. The story begins. That's me in a company a couple of years back. I was the lonesome tester. Does anyone know that feeling, being the only tester in the company? There's a couple of hands, okay. So in this company, that was me. So I was meant to take care of the bi-weekly regression tests. We were basically dealing in iterations, in some sort of agile way. And every 2 weeks there would be releases. And I would have to ask my colleagues from support, from development, from consultants as well, to help test, basically following some guidelines, some checklists that I then developed into test cases. So, as you know, after a while then, I started asking them, they were happy to help, but then in support there were spikes, they didn't have time anymore, other people jumped off, and it became harder and harder to actually get people to test the application. So what you do? At that point in time, what I did was, I heard a lot about this new concept of crowd testing. That's what I want to share today, what this is. So, there are a lot of companies offering crowd testing services. So you see most of the existing names on here. The largest of these corporations, they claim to have tested communities of more than 300,000 people. And the way this works is as follows. So basically, me as a client, I order the services of the crowd testing company, and they have a test manager on their side. So I tell them, okay, for my test, for example, the test crowd, I want to test my app in India. So basically, we have the group of crowd testers here, and for example, I want a set of Indian testers located in India. So that would be these folks. Then I need some Indians that actually speak Hindi, for example, and Kannada, because I want to do internationalization and some special localization testing. So that's less. And then I say, okay, this app is aimed at the Indian market at females between 30 and 40 years of age. So that narrows it down again, so you can see that here. And to show that a little better, I want to do an experiment with you over here. So would everyone who is using a mobile phone please stand up? Thank you. So you're my crowd now. Now, everyone who's using an Android phone, please stay up. And everyone who's not using an Android phone, please sit down. Okay, the majority is using Android here. That's good to see. Would those people not using a Xiaomi device please sit down? Okay. 1, 2, 3. 3 people. Okay. You're my test crowd. And yeah, thank you very much. I think that's worth a round of applause. Thanks for taking part in this little experiment. So it's as easy as this, how to find your crowd testers. And that's where these companies are helping you. And I want to basically tell you about my journey in finding the right crowd testing provider. But I'm an independent consultant. I've worked for clients as well. So I'm not going to share the companies and the names, but I use some analogy. So let's take the analogy of me flying from Munich to Bratislava. So we have this flight plan here, and we need to choose a different flight airline. So we've heard about that earlier on when doing the SEO optimization and the testing, how to find flights. So how do you start? Always doing a pilot, right? So there are 3 different companies. The one is like the largest company on the market. Let's call them Big Air. The second company at that point in time was Flyme, a small uprising company. And the third one was called MyJet. They were also fairly new, and we were about to try them out. So in this pilot, what we did was we had a first test. So we ordered Big Air. We had about 400 to 500 test cases, and we asked them to actually execute the test cases. What happened then was, for some reason they misunderstood, or there was some other communication problem, they did exploratory testing. Okay, we thought, okay, let's give it another try. They were quite good at exploratory testing, so let's ask them now in the second trial to actually do exploratory testing. So what happened then is we asked for exploratory tests on Internet Explorer 10 at the time, no Java runtime environment, and what they did was they used test cases, well, they used different browsers as well. So something went completely wrong here. And this is just like in on an airplane. If you have the crew, the staff, and the pilots talking in different languages, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be a successful flight. So the flight is just going to crash and burn. So they were out of the race, and we went on to the second incumbent. So that's Flyme. So we started with them in this pilot. What happened was, yeah, some sort of false start. So we saw that their system, how you can manage the test cases, the test results, and the test communication, it was still very immature. They used Excel for test cases as well, which was a pain, and it was screenshot hell. So all the bugs reported, all the screenshots connected to the bugs would just get dropped into one folder. So that was really despicable. So they were out of the race as well, and then we checked the company MyJet, and with them actually it went up for a smooth start. We get pretty much everything we wanted. So they were on time. The over 400 test cases were executed in under 2 days. They had a really mature system, a mature platform. It was very flexible, so we could just call them hours ahead of starting the test, and they would get started with it. You can use your preferred testers, because if you know that people give good results, you want to have them again on your next crowd test. So that was possible. And you could basically start tests 24/7, really following the sun, the moon, or whichever other planet you want. And so this was the preferred solution. We went with MyJet. So we have our flight plan back to going from Munich to Bratislava, and we went up for a smooth start up to cruising speed. So how did the first 6 months work? They worked pretty well, and I'm going to show you a graph of how that worked. So we have the vertical axis with the success and horizontal with the time. And so at first we started, and yeah, we had a success, so they found lots of bugs. So, you know, we had lots of issues to fix, and the developers, they were really busy. But then something happened. All of a sudden we saw that, well, the test cases, they're rather unclear. We use, well, domain-specific language as well, specific to the construction industry. And we also needed to overhaul the test data because the testers would interfere with each other because they would be using similar accounts. But then from bad, it got to worse. And we saw that actually when trying to stop such a crowd test in the middle, in order to reset the test data, we would have to reinitialize the database, and that would take a couple of hours. So really taking a long time. And we also had a lot of destructive test cases, so we were altering the test data, then rendering it impossible to keep on testing with that. So basically after that, after a while, after 6 months, we had to see that success also, so you need to invest in your tests, into your test systems as well, and in, you know, in basically accommodating the testers onto your project. So after that, we went into smooth sailing for a while, for about 1.5 years. But then what happened? Turbulences, in combination with running out of fuel in mid-flight, which is not a good thing. So what was actually happening was that the vendor we were talking to, we had the contract for 1.5 years, and the contract was about to run out within the next 3 months. And as we were one of the starting customers, they actually now tried to increase the prices. We get different terms of conditions that were worse. And yeah, we didn't quite know what to do because we were quite happy with them. So what do you think can we do in this case? Any ideas? Well, I'll tell you what we did. We ran another pilot because it was almost 2 years after, and so there were some new companies around and some other companies that have evolved in the meantime. So we took a second look at BEER. We were then actually testing not only the web app, but the mobile app as well. We saw with them actually when uploading the mobile app that the app was altered. So they added an extra framework on top of the app that rendered worse performance of the app. So you're effectively not testing exactly the same app that will be in the stores. And also they didn't manage to finish on time, so it took more than 2 days. So they were out of the race again. Then FlyMe, we saw that, okay, they only had a couple of mobile devices and not the range of devices that we required. In addition to that, they also couldn't deliver in time. They had signing problems with iOS, mind you, that's a few years back, and also the platform wasn't mature enough yet. But then there was a new incumbent in the market. Let's call them Up and Away. So Berlin startup, and it was really cool. So it was a promising platform. They had nice pricing for starters, but they got eaten by BEER. So, and what they did was they actually relabeled the product and then trashed it. So that was it. They just bought one opponent from the market. So what did we do? We went back to MyJet. We had some additional negotiation rounds. So basically we were now not only testing the web, but also our apps. And combined with that, we had better purchasing power. We had a great team on their side already. We knew the testers, the crowd testers. They had all the devices we needed, and they didn't have any of these resigning problems. So after all, after these turbulences, basically we managed to refuel the plane in midair, and we went for a smooth landing, so to speak. Right, so that's the story. And now for the important part of this talk. What are the lessons that I learned? And I had to learn most of them the hard way. So there's 5 lessons that I learned that I'd love to share with you. So lesson number 1 is, if you want to start with crowd testing, you have to do your research. What does that mean? It means check the companies whether they have some sort of test case or exploratory test scenario management system. Try it out before you buy, obviously. Don't just believe the sales slides that you see. Try it for yourself. Also check the pricing model, because that is also tied to the tester motivation. If a tester is paid per bug, then obviously they will report anything they find. They will just swamp you with bugs. And also they will get quite dissatisfied if a bug is rejected because it's a duplicate, because 25 other testers reported the same thing. So check the pricing model. Also, if you can get like a monthly fee, if you pay per test that you execute, if you can get a flat fee. So there's different pricing models out there. Next thing, as mentioned, the tester motivation. So here I have an example that I brought with me. So this was one of the platforms that we took a look at, and you can see from the conversation here that one of the testers is complaining that he's not getting $4 because we rejected that bug. And this kind of conversation, for me as a customer, I mean, I don't want to get involved in that, right? So this is something that you don't really want to have. So after that, it's a good idea to actually register yourself as a tester on their platform, because then you can see, I mean, it's very interesting because you get to test different systems, maybe Hoovers, you can test chewing gum. So they have any sort of thing that you can test as part of a crowd test. So it's quite good fun, good practice as well, so you can try it out. And then you see how testers are actually treated, what the user interface for testers is, and then get a feel for that. And finally, one thing to think about is whether bug retests are included. Because just imagine, crowd tester reports a bug, okay, your developer fixes it, but then it's done on a very specific device, and you want to have it retested. So does the crowd testing company actually include that, or do you have to pay extra for that? And is it easy to get hold of that same tester with the same device again? That was number 1. Number 2, do your housekeeping. So this is related to test cases, your test system, and so on. So you have to make sure, if you work with test cases or test scenarios, have very concise test cases. Don't use special language. If you have to, then please explain what these terms mean, because people interpret things differently. So make sure that it's crystal clear what is to be tested and how. You have to have also distinct and independent test data. So ideally, you just spin up your test database on the click of a button. You create the test data every time you start a test run. So you're really independent here, and you don't interfere with each other as a tester. Then try to have as much as possible non-destructive tests. So tests that don't alter the state of your application. If you have to do that, then try to create data ahead of time that can be destroyed, or try to think about other creative solutions, how to handle that. Resettable test data, as mentioned, that's also quite important. So if you can just reset the test data in your database, for example, at the click of a button, that's the ideal position. It took us initially a couple of hours to do so. So think about some test system, maybe another test system that you can switch on to. The third point, you should start with a pilot, obviously. So it will cost you something, that's right, but it's a small scope and a worthwhile investment, because you get to see and to test how well does the communication with the test manager on their end and with the crowd tester work. You can also see on their platform, for example, the quality of the communication, how good are the bug reports, for example, are there the logs that you want? Are there screenshots or even videos included? So there's a lot that you should take a look at. And yeah, get a grip on the response times. So how long does it take if I have a question for a tester who actually found an issue to get a reply on log files or any other questions that I have? So that will give you a feeling for that. And very important for mobile testing is the availability of the operating systems and test target devices. You know, fragmentation is quite a big issue for Android especially, and you want to make sure you can test on those devices that are important to you. Number 4, the appy end, as I call that. So everything related to delivering the app and uploading the app. So questions you should ask is, are these crowd testers really testing the same app that will be in the store? Is there any adjustment that is made? Do they use the same signature, for example, in the case of iOS apps? How do they distribute the app? So do they use something like TestFlight or other tools, Firebase, for example, to distribute the app to the testers? So is it easy for the testers to actually get access to the app? The re-signing mechanism, that was an outright pain a few years back. Now this has been better, but I've brought along one example here. So I've blackened out the customer. So that was one of the companies that we worked with, and they, for some reason, didn't manage to company sign the iOS app. So we had to do it using their signature, and that revealed to us all of their customers, which also shouldn't happen, really. So this is much less of a problem nowadays with Apple, so thank you very much for that, Tim Cook. The next question is, can you do update tests? For mobile, that's very important because you want to make sure that after the update of your app, the user doesn't have to log in again, so all the state, all the information is still on there. And so try to find out if the crowd testing provider also allows that. So then, you can also have specific target groups, so A-level devices, the top-level devices, then mid-range devices and the low-end devices. Can you do that? Can you target them? And also specific problematic devices that you know cause trouble. Huawei, for example, or you will see a video in a minute regarding that. So that leads me to point number 4. It's the communication with the test management and also the testers. So just ask yourself the question, is it easy to communicate with them? What platforms do they use? Do they have Slack? Is there a communication channel? Do you have to use the platform? Can you just call them as well to start a test? And also check the feedback cycles. So the bug reports, for example, how well are they structured? Is it easy to get feedback and to give feedback on the bug reports? The test manager and the tester communication, is that easy? And also the tester feedback, because your crowd can give you very valuable feedback on your test cases and also on your test scenarios, your test charters. So try to get the feedback as much as possible and check if that's possible, if that's available at all. Then retest possible. We had that topic a few minutes ago. So are retests of existing bugs that have been fixed by your developers, are they possible? Do you have to pay extra for them, or are they included? So very important topic, because obviously you want to get them fixed and then push out the release and not hold that up. How fast is that possible? And as mentioned before, the bug report quality. So some of the providers, they have actually a video screenshot tool for mobile apps. So you see exactly what the user has done. And then it's quite easy in combination with the logs to actually pinpoint the problem. Good. So finally, there are some vendors that have API and Jira integration. So you can actually include crowd testing into your continuous integration and then actually start a test run using your CI. So as part of your Git flow, for example, or a Jenkins job. So keep that in mind. You can also integrate your Jira bug report system so that the bugs they report end up in your bug database. So this pretty much wraps up. So if you want to take some pictures, this is the time now. This is everything summed up again. So you should do your research, your housekeeping, Start with the pilot ideally, look at the appy end, what's in stock in terms of app distribution and how easy it is for the crowd testers to actually get the app and start the app. And then finally, communication. It's all about communication. That's super important. And so finally, I brought one bonus point, number 6 as well. You can do your own beta. So in my previous company, Joyn, so it's a German video streaming company, we actually started our own community. And so basically on there you get feedback, you can check out new features prior to releasing and get some valuable user feedback. So in that company we actually had a UX research group as well, so they were involved in that as well, and you can do beta testing before your app hits the stores. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of this. First, maybe the bad side, the disadvantages. So with the beta community, you have little control over what is being tested because they just test the app and, well, you get the bug reports. Retests are also really hard to get because then catching the testers again is not that easy. And it's a gigantic communication effort, just keeping your community in shape and, engaging them. On the upside, you get early and relevant feedback from your users, and you're building a sustainable feedback community within the most important people in your life, your direct customers. So why is now crowd testing ideal for mobile? Let me explain that to you. So first of all, you're dealing with real people. So this represents your product relevant user base. So it's really those people that you want to release your app for. Next point is that you have a real world device lab after all. So, I mean, there is services out there, so there's Browser Stack, Source Labs, and so on. But basically on there, you have sterile conditions because the devices are reset after each use, and with crowd testers, you basically get real conditions out there. They have different apps installed, they use the mobile networks in the countries that you require them to use, and they can use them on the train or with different Wi-Fi conditions. So the next one is the access to mobile networks and the realistic setup. So basically, you're really testing out in the wild, and that's what you want to do with mobile. So finally, I brought some videos here. These are actually some samples of what actual crowd testers found for us that we didn't find internally. So you can see here, this is the Joyn app actually, and some tester is trying to pause it using the headset. That doesn't work. So we didn't think about that case in the first place, and we really needed some folks out there to actually test it with the additional peripheral devices. Second example, that's here. That's a special device. You can see here there's an ad, there's a countdown running, and what happens, or what should happen when the ad is over is that the content starts, so your film starts. Okay, now the ad is over, and what should happen is that now the film begins, but actually the whole device restarts. And in my whole career as a mobile tester, I've never seen a behavior like this. So this was a Samsung Galaxy J5. We didn't have this device in stock, so we couldn't reproduce it. So we finally found somebody and asked the crowd tester again to reproduce that, and we were able to get that fixed. So, to wrap up, on a final note, I want to quote myself here to tell you that crowd testing is great, but it's only successful ever as part of an integrated test strategy. So still have your unit tests, your integration tests, your UI tests, your test automation, your exploratory testing, everything. And use this as a nice add-on, and I promise you, you will get great results. And then crowd testing will look exactly like this. With a crowd that is enjoying the tests, you get permanent feedback, you give permanent feedback, you get great results, you have a great product. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ron.
We have time for one question, and it's actually the only one that was asked. When can you consider your crowd testing finished?
Well, testing's never really finished, is it? So, yeah, it's a good question. I think it's the same as for any testing, really. So, maybe related to those crowd testing providers, you basically give a certain time slot. You say you want the results within 24 hours, and then you basically receive all the feedback. So after 24 hours, the test run is finished. You can see the results already beforehand, so you can start fixing stuff as the bugs trickle in. And yeah, that's it. So it's really up to you to decide when the testing is finished. Thank you.